What? What everyone's doing over Easter? What can you even do? Are we allowed to go outside yet? I'm just wondering. Let's see what the BBC says. Can I go outside? Man, I don't like reading the news. It's so depressing. What are you guys doing for Easter? Coronavirus explained. Did you hear about this thing called coronavirus? Oh, here we go. It's got its own section. Okay. COVID jab. I just want to know if I'm allowed. You can go outside, right? Does anybody know about this thing? Apparently a lot of South Asians won't take the jab because they think that it's really bad for you. Has anyone else heard of that? Oh, welcome guys. I think I'm a little bit early. I'm trying to find some information about what I can do over the Easter break. If you can hear me, just like throw up a yes in the chat. That would be super helpful, because if you can't hear me, that's bad. That's definitely bad for a live. Can anyone hear me? Is it okay? People are there, but they're just lurking. They're lurking in the background, scared to say anything. What are you most looking forward to doing now that COVID's almost over? I really just want to eat dinner with friends. That's what I miss the most. Just eating dinner. Just casually touching people. Not strangers. That would be weird. I don't miss casually touching strangers. That's strange. Oh. Guys, if you've got any questions, so yeah, go on. So guys, welcome. I'm a little bit early for the Ask Me Anything. So this is sort of an experimental format. Anybody who knows me and Job Read English knows that we're always trying to experiment with new stuff. Hello to anybody who's tuning in. I think we're going live across YouTube, our Facebook group, and also the Facebook page. So if you've got any questions about finding a job, please ask me anything, whether it be around COVID, your CV, what sort of shoes should you wear to go to an interview? That's always really weird when people ask me that question. They're like, what do you think I should wear for an interview? And you just think, well, surely you know what to wear. Like, you've been outside before, right? You've been outside and amongst people. I mean, just don't wear something completely ridiculous. So yeah, ask me anything. Feel free. I'm going to be here. Otherwise, I'm just going to be, let's look up worst dressed interviewees ever. That's always a good way to start. Worst interview outfits ever. Oh, this is cool. Don't go too casual. What's too casual? It's too casual, like just a t-shirt or something, or no trousers. No trousers is too casual. What is the worst? Let's look at the images. That is all right, actually. They're so outrageous. Worst dressed for BAFTA awards. What's that got to do with being worst dressed for job interviews? So yeah, guys, any questions, just throw them up in the chat. I suppose, what can we say about finding jobs? Let us know in the chat, like, where are you? Are you from the UK? Are you in India, Canada, Australia. Yeah, just let me know where you're at, what you're doing while you're here. Say something so it just doesn't feel like I'm by myself. And also what your questions are. Because if you want to find a job, you've got to ask questions, right? I think one thing that I've noticed about, looking for jobs, and people love to lurk on the internet. They're like, is there a secret way to find a job? No, there isn't. So you're going to have to ask questions and be brave. Be a brave little keyboard warrior and write down some questions, because ultimately, so just today I was going through a really good book, actually. I'm not sure, have any of you heard of this book? It's called What Color is Your Parachute? This was actually my copy from 2018. This is when I left I had helped to scale and grow this coaching company. We had like 100 clients a year. And I really didn't know what to do. And I think it's the first job interview that I had in, like 6 years. I had a job interview for a management consulting firm up in Canary Wharf. A friend had referred me for the job, and he said, "Oh, what do you want to do with your life?" And I just said, "Look, I don't know. I've just left this firm. I was COO at this firm. I was managing lots of people. It was really stressful. I didn't enjoy it a lot, to be honest, which is why I started this company, because I wanted to be flexible, to spend more time speaking to people, and also just have some freedom." A lot of people are thinking about, management or being a senior level of executive. They're like, oh, that would be super fun, and I'd get paid loads of money, and I'd get to do whatever I want. Not really. I mean, even just trying to manage a team of, say, 20 people, pretty much all of my day was either spent answering emails, picking up the phone, or speaking to members of staff, like speaking to managers. And what happened was, it left me very little time to go and basically do anything creative. Hello, Facebook user. So Facebook user says, please share the procedure to find work permits in the UK if you are not in the UK. Well, there isn't a procedure. So this is a really common question. If you want to get a job in the UK, you need to be in the UK. It's pretty much the end of story. So a lot of people seem to think that there's an idea that you can get a job outside of the UK, mainly because a lot of agencies are trying to con people and say, hey, you could get a job with somebody. There are loads of YouTube channels like that, and they're really bad. So what happens is someone say, of course you could get a job in the UK. It's super easy, but you can't. I mean, you could come here on a 6-month visitor visa. That would be fine. You could do work cash in hand, which is illegal, and also is not really scalable. Like, you're not going to go anywhere, and you're just going to end up trapped in this kind of immigrant trap. So there isn't really a way to do that. The best way to find a job in the UK is to come and study in the UK, if that's what you want to do. So guys, feel free to post up any other questions that you have. Otherwise, I'll carry on my ramblings. So this book is called What Color is Your Parachute? It's really good. It was first written in 1971. I know that just because they've just done their 50th edition. I would say if there's any book that you were going to buy about careers, not really sure what to do with yourself, as somebody who's read a lot of books around this type of stuff, Richard Bowles' book's still the best. It's really good because it's got a lot of honest and practical advice. For example, a lot of people will kind of be like, what's the secret trick to getting a job? There isn't one. I think there's loads of kind of scammy job finding methods out at the minute, like the reverse job search, the hidden market job search, secret super winning method.com. And the thing is, it's all still hard work, and there is no real one size fits all. So a lot of people mistakenly say, for example, you're a graduate in the UK and you're trying to use the method that a professional would use with 5 years experience. It's not going to apply to you. So a lot of people talk about the hidden job market, and 80% of jobs are in the hidden job market. That might be true, but it's not really that hidden, in the sense that, yes, companies will want to hire people internally, But realistically, what they're going to be doing, that's only really going to apply for professionals. So someone else said, can you convert your visitor visa if you hope to find a job? No, so you can't. So that's another thing that I recommend. Do your homework. Like if you want to come and find a job in the UK, you've really got to go and do your homework and go and do your reading. I think a lot of the misunderstanding or misinformation that happens is, I'll be really honest, it's just because people are lazy and they want somebody else to tell them the answer. But the truth is, anybody can go to the .gov.uk website and read it for themselves. You can't convert a visitor visa. And I'm not an immigration advisor. You could go and look that up on Google. And that's the thing, finding a job is really hard work, even if you're in the UK. Wherever you are right now with COVID, it's going to be hard work. So yeah, if you're looking for like a good book, just because I was rereading this today, because we're putting out some new content, Richard Bowles is a really good book, something that I highly recommend. You can go and buy it on Amazon. Because one thing that I found is really useful for thinking about looking for jobs is just accepting that it's going to be hard work. You need to have a goal. So something we're going to be putting out soon is it's called the 9 keys to a successful job search. And if you want to kind of make sure you get that, then you can go and subscribe to our newsletter, or you can just subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's a good point. If you haven't subscribed, then please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be super helpful. So the other thing that you can do is you can come and subscribe to the newsletter. So what about, so here's another question. Can new dependents be added on PSW if you're getting married? I've got no idea. So I'm not really sure why all these questions are related to visas. That's something to ask an immigration advisor. I'm not an immigration advisor. So I don't know why. You can also just go and look it up yourself. So I just go and look up the graduate route and do your own research. So if you're thinking about what are the 9 keys to really successful job search, number 1 has got to be, set yourself a goal. So a lot of times when people are thinking about finding a job, what they'll do is that they'll go out and just randomly just start applying for jobs. And what kind of happens is that if you're just randomly clicking on like Indeed and LinkedIn, it's a super frustrating process, right? Doing all this one-click applying, and also you're probably not getting the results that you're looking for. I.e., there's one of 2 things that are happening. The first thing that's happening is that no one's replying to you, and it's really depressing. So when you're really putting yourself out there, and I've been like that because when I first graduated, it was during the credit crunch, which was like 2008, 2009. They said it was the worst recession since the Depression. And I can remember applying for jobs in that period and getting either 1 of 2 responses. One was no response, and the other one was like a response, but having to go through a really complicated process for, I don't know, I can remember applying for a telesales job. I just left my first job out of university, which was working in project management in construction. And I applied for a job to work on telesales, right? So telesales is basically where you have an auto dialer on a phone and you just put the phone down, pick it up, put the phone down. It's really depressing. It's a really bad job, but I was desperate. Like I really needed some money. I was in my early 20s. I thought I'll do anything. And I went because I went to go and meet them. It was somewhere in Southeast London. And the guy said, yeah, sure, like come down and have an interview. And he literally sat in front of me. He's like, you're going to hate this job. If you want to sit here for 8 hours and put down the phone, pick up the phone, that's literally what you're going to be doing. Then multiply that for however long it's going to be. So the thing is, if you're not setting really clear goals, you're just going to be applying for a lot of jobs, which honestly are shit. And that's the thing, like no goals, no decisions about what you're doing. Because there's a differentiation if you're a student. If you're just applying for part-time jobs, that's cool. Like go and work at Deliveroo, go and work in fast food. I've worked in fast food before. It was my first job ever. Outside of school, I worked in KFC. I made burgers. I did that job for like 2 years. It really taught me a lot about resilience and working under pressure. It was really difficult. I was working in KFC in Blue Water, and it was just horrible. Like, I hated the job, but I really needed the money. So I turn up there on a Saturday, and it was good because you get to eat whatever you like. At lunchtime, I got a bit fat actually from all the food that I ate from KFC on a Saturday every day. And the other thing that I didn't really like about it was that you would just smell of oil for days. So I couldn't get out the smell of smelling like KFC for like 3 days. I'd literally have to have 3 or 4 showers just to get out that smell from my clothes. But I kept doing it because it was a job, and you're going to do the job that's there in front of you until you really, really don't want to do it. But setting goals is really important. The next thing is really taking action. So the second key to successful job search is, can you go out and take some action for what you want to do? For example, it's putting in little pieces of action, like every single time, to go out and find those jobs. So what are you doing on a weekly basis? Not just what are you doing, but is what you're doing working? I think that's a really important thing to think about. A lot of times when people think about job search, they just think about volume. So when they're talking about looking for jobs, they're just like, oh, I've applied for 50 jobs this week. That's great. So what? I mean, if you're applying for 50 jobs and they're bad jobs, then you shouldn't be applying for those jobs. If you're applying, say, for 50 jobs and none of those jobs have responded to you, are you applying for the right sort of jobs? Is this the right platform for you to be applying on? Are you using the right CV? And then you kind of want to sort of reverse engineer that process and think about, what's a better way that I can do this? What's the sort of data that I can at least glean? I think I've told this story before, but I once had a guy, this was years ago, I had a guy come down and see me in our London office, and he was really angry. He sat down at the table like, whew, and he was just, the guy had basically come down, he traveled all the way to see me, to speak to me for free, and I had a little bit of extra time, and he was like, and he kind of slapped his CV down on the table, and he said, I have applied for over 300 jobs. I was like, okay, so what? Why are you telling me this? And he goes, well, you said that students like me can get a job, and I don't think that's true because I've applied for all of these jobs. I was like, well, out of those jobs, how many positive responses you get? And he's like, not many. And I was like, what do you mean not many? Like 5, 1, 20? I said, so you don't actually know your own figures? And he was like, well, no one's replying to me. I said, well, surely what you're doing doesn't work then. I said, because the common sense dictates, if you'd applied for 100 jobs and received no response, then you need to change your strategy. You need to change what you're doing because it's not working, because you've already taken a sample size of jobs. And I'd make it much smaller. You might have 10 or 20. Actually, I talk about it in the Zero to Job ebook and say, make a list of 50 companies. But say you send out 10 job applications in a week and then hear nothing. Surely it's worth just thinking, let me just change one thing. Bearing in mind, don't change everything. So this is kind of an idea from marketing and to do with split testing. I wouldn't change everything, but I change one thing. I might send a slightly different CV. I might change my cover letter a little bit. And then I test that for another 10 jobs. And then I would change something else and test that for another 10 jobs. And a lot of people don't do that. They'll just use the same application style for months. And then they'll go, oh, the problem is the system. The problem is the people, the environment. And it's just like, no, the problem is you. Because ultimately, looking for a job, you want to think about it. And it talks about this in What Color Is My Parachute? You would like to think of a job as basically something as a selection game. Like, employers are going to select the very best candidate for the job. When the truth is, it's an elimination game, and you could be eliminated unfairly because employers don't have the time to get to know you. It's kind of like internet dating, using something like Tinder or some kind of mechanism where there is an enormous amount of choice and a limited amount of supply. I mean, generally, if you're talking about heterosexual relationships, there's always going to be more men than women on stuff like Tinder, and it's going to be the top 10% or the top 5% of men who are going to score very, very well and get lots of interest from women, and a lot of the men are going to get none or relatively little interest, because it's a game of choice, and when there's more choice, it becomes uneven and unfair in terms of making that choice. So you have to make yourself noticeable. I think in dating, they call this peacocking, or trying to make yourself stand out, for example, with a particularly good profile picture, for example. But you want to think about this when you're taking action, not just how am I doing it, but also is what I'm doing the right thing to do. Throw a message in the comments, guys. Let me know if any of this makes sense. If you've got any questions, anything that in particular that you want to talk about. Anybody? Cool. I'll continue on with my rambling then. The next thing to think about is how can you develop the sort of third key to successful job search is how can you develop confidence effectively? So a lot of times what people really struggle with is being shy. So they're shy and they just think, oh, I can't really find a job because I don't really like speaking to people, which is fine. There are lots of people like that. And that's actually only going to increase with our excessive use of technology, particularly post-COVID, right? If you spent a year by yourself or isolated from other people, your social skills are really going to take a hit. And if anything, you're not alone if you're going out with and having this sense of anxiety in seeing people, in being around large groups of people. I've had quite a few people say to me recently, as the lockdown restrictions are being eased, that they feel really socially anxious going out and being amongst other people because it's been such a long time since they've had that experience. So if you're shy, you're not alone, but there's got to be a reasonable bridge between your shyness and what the employer wants. It's one thing saying, look, I struggle with being shy. For example, myself personally, when I was in my early 20s, I really struggled with being shy. I could be quite rude at times, but I certainly wouldn't have done things like this. I wouldn't have made so many YouTube videos. I wouldn't have made so many videos of so many different things, because essentially what I realized was that to overcome my shyness, the very best thing that I could do is really just to practice speaking, presenting, and communicating. Now, you might say, well, look, that's all very well for you, but I would never do something like that. I'm not that kind of person. I mean, look, if that's the case, then go out and find a medium that you can use, which is easier for you. In What Color Is My Parachute, it talks about this as the pie method for interviewing. So first of all, it's about thinking, who could I just practice interviewing just about anything or having an interview with? This could be your friend, could be your mum, could be a member of your family, and you could just choose a random topic. We all have hobbies. We all have things that we like or things that we know that our loved ones like. And it's something that we could practice with them, for example. And you can just practice answering some questions, having a conversation, and really getting into it. And then afterwards, I'll show this to you actually. Let's see, where are we? Here we are. So it talks about it here. It's actually from a guy called Daniel Porot, who's in Switzerland. So this is the most recent edition of What Color Is Your Parachute? It's from 2021. And what it really talks about is if you're shy. So anybody here who's watching this and they're shy, this is a really good thing to think about. First of all, just accept your own shyness. If that's who you are, then that's okay. There's no need to be afraid or ashamed of that. The second thing is just accepting that there are certain interview situations where you're always going to experience some level of discomfort. And again, if that's the case, that it's just accepting that discomfort is not always bad. There's a point where discomfort becomes unbearable. That's true. And we're not asking you to, but just kind of challenging yourself a little bit and stepping a little bit out of your comfort zone is something to kind of explore. The next thing is something that I really love. It's called practicing self-compassion. So what do we mean by practicing self-compassion? Well, I tend to find that people who are introverted or shy tend to be really hard on themselves. So they're always like, oh, like, bloody hell, why did I say this? Why did I do that? I wish I'd said this. I wish I'd gone there, all that kind of thing. And it's this kind of idea of that you're, some sort of mind reader or fortune teller. It talks about here, but just realizing that just because you feel a certain way, it doesn't make it true. And also part of this is just about accepting who you are. For example, I might appear to be at times in videos and stuff that we've done to be extroverted, but actually I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm a bookworm. I really love reading and kind of just thinking about things, doing stuff in detail, and that doesn't necessarily lend itself towards extroversion. I don't particularly like massive groups of people, all those kind of things that I think about. And you don't have to be like that either. You don't have to be somebody, there's no point being an introvert and trying to force yourself to be an extrovert. I certainly don't do that, and I'm okay with the way that I am. If we're at a dinner table with 10, 15 other people, I'm probably the guy who's sitting there not saying anything and listening to everybody else, because I like being like that. I actually prefer to listen to people, when I have the opportunity rather than to speak, because to be honest, I get bored of the sound of my own voice, and my job is essentially to speak and to get paid for my advice and my thoughts about things. So in my personal life, I really want to spend more of my time listening to other people. So yeah, this idea of not being too hard on yourself and also focusing on what you're really good at. I think this is quite an important thing to think about. So, if you're not good at, for example, communicating, what are you good at? I've met some really talented programmers and artists and different people like that who are just good at lots of different types of things, just not necessarily, they're not good at communicating. Meditation, that's great. Bearing in mind that you probably perform best one-to-one, right? So really good hallmark of an introvert versus an extrovert. And I certainly count myself as one of those people, and I'm so grateful to have the internet, because I really operate best one-to-one or one to a small group of people, not really so much kind of one to many. I mean, I think the biggest group of people I've ever spoke to is about 1,000 people. I didn't particularly enjoy it. And in fact, if I've ever spoken to a large group of people, I only imagine that I'm just speaking to one person. I'm just speaking to one person who, and this is really an idea from copywriting, I might imagine that I'm speaking to my mum or speaking to my friend. I really don't, or I'm just speaking to one client when I'm speaking about lots of different things. And that's kind of what they recommend. I find what introverts really struggle with the most are medium-sized groups. So if you're an introvert, you'll probably be really scared of doing group discussions, because you'll kind of think, holy cow, what am I going to do? There's so many people. Again, just concentrate on speaking to one person at a time. And what kind of comes up in this method is something that Daniel Porot, which comes from John Crystal. He was the first person sort of in the 60s that provided the basis for the parachute approach. The parachute approach is basically being centered around the person. It's kind of person-centered. It's PI. So PI is like a practice or a pleasurable interview. I is for information, and E is for an employment. And what they say is for practice, it's just about talking to people one-to-one and maybe pushing the boundaries of that a little bit further to somebody who you don't speak to all the time. And to avoid anxiety, just choose something that's not related to careers or hobby, or anything like that. Just something you just maybe you're curious about. Maybe it's a hobby that you love, something you enjoy doing in your spare time, a curiosity, something about where you live. Whatever it is that it's just something that you basically, there's only one criteria. It should be something that you love talking about with other people. And then after that, you can then kind of practice so you talk about that first, then you practice interviewing that person. So you might say, how did you get involved in this? What do you like the most and least about it? What do you suggest I talk? Who else can I talk to? Can I use your name? Just getting into this idea of a bit of back and forth and going backwards and forwards. And this is sort of breaking it down the pie, which is practice field surveys just to get used to talking to people. Informational interviewing is really just, you can do this through LinkedIn. You can message people and try and speak to people and just try and figure out if this is something that you would enjoy doing as a job. And then, of course, the employment interviews for getting employed. And I really recommend it is What Color Is My Parachute? The 2021 guide is out now. I will share that for you in the stream. But anyway, guys, it looks like it's just me and one other very brave person. So unless there are any more questions, I think I will end this stream early. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And I'm also, if you've got a question, you can post it through to me. I'm just going to post up the link to What Color Is Your Parachute because it's super useful. Any questions, feel free to pop it through, and I'm going to put this link in the chat. There you go. That's What Color Is Your Parachute. Any other questions for me, guys? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, look, thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to maybe doing this again sometime. Have a great bank holiday Easter weekend. Take care. Bye.